Only mode.
Hello everybody, welcome to another series of OutMatch's Thought Leadership webinar. Today's webinar will introduce 10 reasons why using assessments will make your job easier. We will cover quite a bit of information, so keep in mind that at the end of the presentation we'll send out a copy of the slide deck. We'll also have a recorded version that we can share with you. A couple of housekeeping things to keep in mind for questions. You can always go to the queue within the GoToWebinar or tweet at OutMatchHCM with the hashtag of no more hiring headaches, because that's what we're going to alleviate. If you haven't been brought up to speed, there's a unique evolution that happened between Check.com and Assess Systems, which I will talk to you about in just a second. So that's where OutMatch comes from. However, today we're talking about assessments, and no one is better to guide us through this wonderful world than Stacy Smeal. Stacy is a master of industrial organizational psychology, which happens to be the backbone of assessing candidates in the hiring process. Without further ado, Stacy.
Hi, yeah, so thank you everybody for your time and joining us today. We understand that you came to us because you have an interest in assessments. That can be because you are using them currently, or maybe you're looking for expanded opportunities to use assessments, or maybe you're curious about using them. You've heard the buzz about assessments in business and you want to know what value they can bring to you and your team. So as we're walking through the content today, I just want to give you some context that I've had opportunities to work on both the front and the back end of the assessments. So, I've really done some research starting in terms of actually building the assessments and working to gather the data to calibrate those assessments and make sure they're specific to appropriate roles and specific strategic partners. But I've also had the fortune and opportunity to work directly as a client liaison to understand their needs, deliver the research material to our research team here, and help implement assessments. So I've gotten a lot of feedback from strategic partners. I've gotten a lot of great questions, and I think that will help to guide our conversation today.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Stacy, for that quick, brief introduction. I promise she's going to be a very, very large well of knowledge for everybody. I do want to mention this real fast before we get started. In August 2015, Assess Systems and Check.com joined forces and are truly better together, combining the behavioral science heritage and the hiring expertise of Assess Systems with the data-driven platform and scalable talent selection engine of Check.com. We became the leading experts in matching the right person with the right job. No competitor in the market offers the comprehensive talent selection and employee development platform as OutMatch. We truly outmatch the competition when it comes to identifying the right talent for your jobs. So with that out of the way, keep in mind the hashtag of no more hiring headaches at OutMatchHCM, and away we go. So Stacy, what is an assessment?
So an assessment can be thought of essentially as a tool, and this tool is used to evaluate an individual on their overall suitability for a job. Most commonly, they take the form of tests or formal practices that gather objective and job-relevant information about applicants. They can be used to measure factors such as personality, skills, and even situational judgment. So this type of information is really used to guide decisions about how well an applicant is likely to perform the tasks and responsibilities associated with a particular position. And the use of assessments also creates structure for selection processes. And this structure really delivers a lot of value itself in terms of efficiency, consistency, and general ease of use. So with the use of automated, integrated selection workflows, you not only see the value from the predictive information delivered from the actual assessments, but you can also experience time savings as these assessments can be administered any time of the day. So essentially with an integrated online process, you can administer some of the screening tools or essentially have the process administer these screening tools for you. And when the tools are implemented correctly, the task of actually separating out those high potential candidates from those who may not succeed in the role, it becomes a simplified, scalable process.
That's fantastic. You know, for the audience, if you didn't know, 80% of Fortune 500 companies use assessments today in their hiring process. And why do they do this? Well, it's because it makes hiring that much easier. If you aren't one of these companies using assessments, the next 10 slides are reasons why you should start. The goal of many assessments is to quickly narrow down a broad applicant pool and identify top talent for a given role. How do assessments help recruiters and hiring managers achieve this goal?
Right, so assessment reports provide actionable data in the form of an overall score or recommendation for each candidate. This really allows recruiters or hiring managers to focus their time and energy on those highest potentials early in the process. So essentially, you can rely on that summary or guidance information, but each candidate report also presents detailed information, helping you to uncover specifics regarding what a candidate would be like to onboard, to work with, to develop, and all of these type of aspects post-hire. Additionally, you know, with the use of multiple assessments, you can actually narrow down the candidate pool essentially by adding layers of information at each step in the process. So if you think of your selection workflow as a funnel, each step of the screening process should kind of weed out some of those candidates and allow those with the best fit to actually move forward in the process. The more objective, actionable data you can gather on a candidate, the better informed your hiring decisions are going to be, and the more well-equipped your team is going to be to find that one best fit.
That's great. You know, assessments can help pinpoint job-specific traits and competencies, but you know, how do assessments identify these factors, though?
Yeah, this is a good question, Dan. So with a clear definition of a role and its success factors, you can put the tools into place that can be used to forecast relevant future performance. And a predictive assessment is carefully constructed to measure the requirements of a job or even a job family. And there's a very methodical approach taken to defining the assessment measures. And some of those steps can include thorough documentation of job relatedness. Now, what does this mean? In practice, this means drawing from existing research and company-generated descriptions of job requirements. It can entail asking for direct input from subject matter experts and even the leadership team across the organization. It also takes the approach of linking the assessment measures to actual on-the-job performance. So to ensure that we're actually measuring for context factors that are actually going to lead to high performance on the job, what we need to do is either draw from industry normed data or administer an assessment to current employees in a role and linking those assessment items to their performance metrics. With the use of a post-hire collection, metrics collection process, like the use of an impact post-hire survey, we're actually able to make the process of collecting applicant assessment data and linking it with subsequent on-the-job performance much more streamlined and ongoing, so that arduous task that I'm sure many of you on the line and in the audience have gone through. If you've set up assessments, you know what kind of undertaking that research task is to make sure that you are screening for the right gene. There are tools in place to streamline that process as well.
Perfect. So you really are looking at the DNA of the individual.
Absolutely.
So moving on to step 3, stop second guessing. You know, whether you're hiring hourly employees or executives, you rarely have the luxury of taking your time, finding the right candidate, and just knowing for sure. So how can assessments help streamline this decision-making process?
Good question again. So when you use assessments, you really don't have to sacrifice quality of hire for speed of hire. You can meet those tight hiring timelines by rapidly prioritizing candidates based on their overall score and only moving forward with those who are indicated as being the best fit. And a robust selection process is going to drive structure and consistency into that hiring process. Best practices for the use of selection assessments recommend the use of multiple assessments. So you're actually collecting objective, well-rounded information specific to a candidate's suitability for a job. Now, most stages of the assessment process are able to be completed in an online and integrated workflow, which is going to help eliminate error and biases in the decisions of recruiters and hiring managers. An online and integrated workflow of this manner is going to allow you to collect reliable information around the clock, which is going to result in substantial time savings for your recruiters and hiring managers, and it's not going to have to cause you to sacrifice that quality of information. So a strategic approach like this is going to help you accurately and swiftly forecast which candidates are going to be the most successful in a certain role.
Beautiful. So number 4, forget the quirky interview questions. We've all had our fair share of these. I wonder if anybody in the audience, like myself, have ever been asked, these are great icebreaker interview questions, right? If you were a citrus fruit, which citrus fruit would you be and why? Now, I always wondered, is this a useful interview question?
A short answer, no. That's a good party question, but using fun or icebreaker type of questions in an interview is simply inviting internal biases and opinions into the selection process. It's really just increasing the chances of making poor hiring decisions, which can be very, very costly. So, you know, in terms of approaching the interview, it should be an approach that has a structured assessment tool tied to it. That'll allow you to benefit from job-relevant interview questions that are based on competencies necessary for success in a role. So instead of your citrus fruit question, Dan, for example, somebody might have asked you, tell me about a time when you made a decision quickly and it didn't turn out as expected. What factors did you miss? So you can kind of see the difference. Using behaviorally based interview guides, hiring managers have an analytical process that can be used to further understand how job candidates compare to each other relative to the requirement of the role that they're applying to.
You know, interviews are always, usually awkward enough, and then you have to decide whether you want to be an orange or a lemon or a pineapple. You just never know what the right answer is, right? So.
No, it could also, aside from choosing from fruit, it might also lead to legal repercussions as well.
Well, there you go. You don't want that. Well, number 5, it takes us all a little bit further into dig into the details. You mentioned that assessment reports include overall score and recommendation to guide decision making. What if the recruiters want more information?
Right, so drawing again on the premise of the integrated selection process, information is gathered at each stage in this process, and it is vital for those hiring managers to have overall guidance at each stage that can be used to efficiently compare candidates. This is why the overall score can help make that process more efficient, but of course these pieces of information and these overall scores are meant to guide decision making, not replace it. So it's also important that recruiters and hiring managers can dig into the detailed information that's being recorded at each stage. The assessment reports also include in-depth detail and context that can be used to help you understand which critical traits or competencies are strong points for a particular candidate. This level of detail really can help hiring managers feel more confident and informed when bringing a candidate into specific tasks or responsibilities. Similarly, understanding which critical traits or competencies are not strong points for a given candidate can be very useful for crafting onboarding and training initiatives. This type of detail is also included on the reports. So, as a takeaway, this information can feed directly into tailored interview questions as well, which can be used to further explore a candidate's potential on areas that are flagged as vulnerabilities, which is just adding another layer of detail into the overall reporting.
Right. Right. So number 6 here moves us on, and it's something that's very difficult to do, and build your very best team. We've discussed a lot about selecting individuals into jobs, but what about within the context of building teams?
So I think that the value of assessing individual candidates is widely understood and accepted at most organizations, but assessments can also be leveraged on employees and work teams that already exist within an organization. So you've already hired your high potential performers. Now you want to ensure that you're putting the right tools into place to ensure that your teams are able to express their potential and grow in a way that meets organizational level goals. So assessments are a great way, again, to get a snapshot of where a team's overall capabilities lie, get a sense of where there might be deficiencies. This level of awareness can help guide your strategy for achieving the goals you have specific to this team, as well as their impact on those organization level goals. So by assessing your team as a whole, or by assessing each individual team member, you're going to have a better understanding of the team's strengths as well as gaps that you can fill either through development initiatives or with new hires. And with the use of development assessments, you can actually fast-track individuals with leadership potential. So with an understanding of where your team is strong, you can nurture those strengths and also get a sense of understanding in terms of where opportunities lie for improvement. With a bigger picture measurement of a strategic work group, essentially you can just take a more deliberate approach to improving team performance.
That's great. So we also need to cut through the bias, right? There's a lot of selection processes that are relying on hiring managers to use their gut feeling or best judgment. Assessments can really minimize the danger of bias, can't they?
Yeah, and you know what? Bias comes in many forms. It may be something that we're aware of, and it may sneak in when we don't even know that it's being utilized. For example, you might see evidence of the similar to me effect where a lot of times this happens in interviews. Again, things get kind of unstructured in an interview setting, and an interviewer may unconsciously start to favor those candidates who are a lot like themselves. This type of bias can lead to ultimately poor hiring decisions, potential legal issues, and not to mention a significant skills gap from an undiverse workforce. So using structured research-based assessments, you're ensuring that all candidates have a fair and equal chance for consideration by even-handedly comparing them to the actual requirements of the job. So the value of your selection decisions can be maximized with the use of analytical measurements of job relevant information that has been justified through that front-end research. And by doing this work up front and creating those assessment tools that include measures that are linked to performance, hiring managers are going to have a rigorous, in-depth process that they can count on for guidance. Creating these tools and putting them into place is only part of the process, though, for effective use and cutting back on the bias. Providing training and ongoing support for hiring managers, which is part of a strategic partnership, is going to help these recruiters and hiring managers understand the protocol for using these tools and interpreting the reports. This, again, is going to mitigate all of those opportunities for bias to sneak into the process. So this will also allow hiring managers to feel confident that they're utilizing strategic selection processes as opposed to having to rely on or fall back on personal opinions or gut feelings.
Well, doesn't that also help the culture of the company as well? If you're hiring in cutting through the bias and trying to cut out whether or not you think you want to have a drink with them after work or not, you're actually putting people, and this goes back to that team element. You've got all of these upfront things that you want to identify that would make somebody succeed in a job, not only the job, but now the team and now the company as a whole, and you've got people that you want to work around anyway. That's
right, absolutely. So, with high-performing teams and bringing on people who are going to perform well in their job, it's going to have really good impact on the overall culture of the organization in terms of how well people work together.
Wonderful. So number 8 is standardized screening and interviewing. I'm sure many of you on the line have met candidates who seemed sharp on their resume, phone screen or interview, but fell short of the actual job setting. But look, bad hires happen all the time, and usually because hiring managers are having to guess their way through the process, but using random criteria and making quick decisions based on limited information. That's hurting them.
Right. So by using assessments, you can create powerfully predictive processes for the bulk of your hiring efforts, starting from the initial screening process all the way through to reference checking and even beyond. These processes can be standardized and automated, but perhaps more importantly, they can also be backed by data and scientific research to deliver the most efficient and effective screening tools at each and every stage in the process. And by putting tools into place at each stage in the selection process, you don't have to worry about predictively narrowing down your applicant pool just at the initial screening stage, and then the rest of the process just hope for the best as you move applicants forward through interviewing and reference checking. There are multiple stages to the selection process, so it's key to have guidance and resources in place at each and every stage to drive good hiring decisions all the way through to the end. And a well-constructed selection process like this is going to create, again, that fair and consistent candidate experience. It's going to make it easier to mitigate bias from the hiring managers by taking away that more personal factor and allowing an objective comparison among the candidates based on the requirements of a specific role.
Right, right. All right, let's go to number 9 here. My screen's going to move. There we go. We're going to get the real story. Reference checking is usually a missed opportunity, right? But when you put the process online and keep the content specific to the job, you'd really be amazed to see the response rate and the candidate feedback that you get.
Right. So the reference check can actually deliver an additional layer of job relevant information. And if we can collect input on work-specific behaviors that a candidate has exhibited in past roles, that's going to be extremely important context for decision-making around hires. Candid responses regarding an applicant's historical performance can be collected through competency-based questions. This layer of rich information can be rolled up, again, into an overall score that can be used efficiently to help inform hiring decisions about whether to move a candidate further along the selection process. Not only will this historical context provide you with a wealth of valuable information, but in an online, candidate-driven process, this information from the reference checking process can actually be obtained in a fraction of the time compared to the traditional reference checking process. So instead of allowing this reference check step to essentially exist as a box to check off of your selection process, you can leverage assessments here again to rapidly gather additional critical information from people who've actually seen a candidate in action.
That's great. I see a couple questions in here. I just want to let everybody know that we'll address the questions at the conclusion, and we'll make sure we have enough time to do that. Number 10 is boost the bottom line. The one reason to use assessments is indisputably the most important for many organizations. So assessments not only have a huge impact on the quality of your teams, but they can also help move the needle for your entire organization.
Right. Assessments can benefit the bottom line by improving a slew of metrics from time to hire, cost to hire numbers, and also by accurately identifying candidates who are going to significantly boost productivity and revenue across the organization. I think some of the best examples actually come from our existing strategic partners. And to give you some of those examples, with the use of selection assessments in one particular case, we have a strategic partner in the insurance industry. Their recruiters have reported up to 2 hours a day of their time being given back to them in terms of being able to identify potential candidates. So by rolling out assessments for selection processes, they had all the information they needed being delivered to them on an ongoing basis, which allowed them to save, on an individual basis, up to 2 hours a day. That really adds up. If you also want to take that back to a more dollar value, in another example from one of our strategic clients in the restaurant industry, the strategic use of assessments directly contributed to an annual cost savings in their hiring and training initiatives that added up to over $800,000. So, I mean, I don't think I need to say any more than that. The numbers speak for themselves. By taking a methodical, research-based approach and putting the right tools into place, it's going to create quite a difference in your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look at that. There's another number 11. That's amazing. We have a bonus item for you. You know, power your development strategy. I bet you didn't see that coming. A bonus number 11. The benefits of assessments don't end after you get great talent in the door. So how can these assessments continue to deliver value after hires have been made?
Well, you know, I wish I was prepared for number 11, but this is a great question, and I've got some insight into that. So selection reports can actually feed directly into development and 360 assessments, and they leverage that job-relevant data collected up front in the selection process, and they deliver that detailed information through to hiring manager and trainers' hands, essentially, so that they can build out individualized onboarding and training programs. You can also bring that front-end information to inform 360 initiatives, gathering insight from managers and peers about an employee's progress compared to where they stood as a job candidate. Additionally, this is very important. I think information gathered through the use of assessment can also be leveraged at a more global level. So by analyzing selection data and its connection with subsequent performance measures, you have the ability to quantify the return on your investment. But even beyond that, you can utilize an ongoing process for this. Again, like our impact post-hire survey, this is going to allow you to continually gather metrics around quality of hire, which can be used to track trends and provide clear insight into selection decisions. Something I think that's also really cool, above and beyond looking at that ROI, is that the impact survey can systematically gather input from new hires about their perceptions of the entire selection process. So not only are you going to understand what's happening with your assessments and get a sense of ROI, but now you also have measures in place that are going to give you insight into other key talent acquisition factors, such as recruiter communication and quality of the sources where candidates are being pulled from. So if you think of all of this information taken together and being considered very carefully, you can not only develop your employees on an individual or team level basis, but you also have information that you can leverage in an actionable form to actually develop and evolve your entire talent acquisition process.
That's great. You know, so I think we got this question that came in, I think is really important because we always talk about getting the best fit into the door, but we never talk about how to keep them with the organization. And so the question is, you mentioned that assessments provide information for best fit. Best fit leads me to believe that it is predicting performance. How can assessments also predict longevity?
Right, so we can put tools into place to gather insight into the factors that actually contribute to both attrition and staying on the job. So by putting measures into place, we can continually collect data and learn what factors are causing individuals to stay and then appeal to those factors. But by systematically also researching and learning about the factors that lead to turnover, we're going to be able to take a strategic partnership approach to understanding what kind of approach we can take to put measures or processes into place to cover some of those factors that are attributing to turnover.
Fantastic. You know, I got like less than a minute left, I believe. So let's say thank you to everybody. Thanks for joining us today, I should say, right? Thank you very much, Stacy, for helping us understand assessments a little bit better. We did cover a lot of information today, so please, you can reach out to us at info@outmatch.com. That goes to a sweet person within our sales department that is going to be able to help you any way she can. For the slide deck, link to the recorded version, or a demo for yourself about OutMatch, it doesn't matter. You can also find us on Twitter at OutMatchHCM. And next time, we'll break out our crystal ball and discuss the future of hiring. So join us on April 7th. We certainly appreciate everybody's time, and we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.